At the top of a strong climb, this pilot flies out of the thermal, the glider goes soft, he accidentally stalls it, and so begins this long, arduous battle with his own wing. Today I'm going to break this down to show you how to avoid this so you can fly safer every day. Are you ready? Here we go. What's up, everybody? This is Ari in the Air. Welcome back to the channel. Stoked you're here. I analyze collapses to give pilots honest feedback about their decision-making and skills as it relates to their outcomes. This is the same thing that happens in the Paragliding men's group, where 50 pilots from 15 countries have stopped defending themselves endlessly and taken a good long look at what's not working. Whether you're reviewing paragliding footage or looking at the culture in your home and your relationship, growth requires some brutal honesty and some courage. So if you're ready for that kind of truth in your life, you're a husband or a father who paraglides and you're ready to step into living your life as an example of freedom and love for your family, use the link in the description to apply for the Paragliding men's group. Okay, there's only a couple spots left. This is the last week to apply. Let's get into today's video. As with always, we are going to watch it one time through and then I'll break it down. So he's flying over Cascade Mountain next to Timpanogos outside Salt Lake City. Glider soft, stalls, backfly, wrestling and backfly, active hands, backfly, loses heading control, spinning, weight shift over, weight shift the other way, spinning, still spinning, and shoots, falls into line twist almost, and it straightens them out. Okay, let's back up here. So today we're talking about this event. This is a similar event to a recent video about Blue Gen Glider in New Zealand who takes a similar kind of collapse. What is happening here is basically these pilots are in strong lift and they either fly out of it or get to the top. So basically the body and the glider are going up at 4 meters a second or so. When the glider flies out of it, the body still has this inertia, this momentum. And so it's flying, the body is flying up towards the wing and it slacks the lines. The pilot experiences an enormous drop in brake line pressure. And so the pilot pulls the brake lines, which is correct, but then the timing is off on the release. And we are going to see that right here. Ready? So slack, brakes, stall. Let's focus for a second on the inception of the stall, and then I'll break down kind of what happens during the cascade and the fight here, okay? And as I use the word cascade, it's almost ironic because this is Cascade Mountain in the Wasatch that he's flying over. This is just above a launch called Inspo. I've had incredible flights out of here before. Just to the right here, Timpanogos, such an unbelievable mountain to fly over, and Salt Lake City over the next mountain. Like I said, when you fly out of this lift, your body's inertia can slack the lines, okay? So if we play forward here, oop, it happens really fast. So let's back up, because what happens as the glider goes soft, right here in this moment, we'll just key forward. The glider goes soft. He does the correct thing, which is pull a bunch of brake. He loses brake line pressure, and ringing the bell is pulling the brakes down until you find brake line pressure, okay? And you can see that he's searching for it because what's happening here? All of the lines are slack here. Look at these. Even the A's and the B's here have bows in them. They're now touching each other. We look at these various frames. The B's are touching the A's. The rear riser has this big bow in it, these big loops, okay? The left glider, not so much. Look at the left riser, straight C's, straight B's, straight A's, okay? So in this configuration, the right side of his wing is being slacked. It has no pressure, so he is correct to pull the brakes down. But the release of the brakes is incredibly important. I know we've talked about this a bunch on the channel, but this video demonstrates exactly the moment that you have to have your hands up, okay? So watch this right C riser and see the big loops, okay? You can also look at the A's and B's too, because they give clues. So as we key forward, huge loops, spaghetti, bows in the B's and C's. Okay, and then all of a sudden, we're getting tension back, right? Now we have tension right here. See that? See now the C lines are straight? Okay, this is the moment that the glider stalls. Because when there's no pressure on the lines, having infinity brake pull doesn't matter. But the moment that the weight of the pilot starts pulling on the glider again, that is the moment that if the hands are up, then the glider will fly. And if the hands are too deep, then the glider will stall. It really is an instantaneous moment. So here, as he starts to weight the glider again, look, you can see his right hand down here. It's beneath the carabiner, and the glider stalls immediately. Okay. Also, it's easy to note that the left side of the glider, which we noted that the rears never slacked, the risers weren't flopping around. The right glider is the glider that stalls. That's why he's basically pointing to the south here. And then instantly as he stalls it, he turns at least 90, if not more, 120, 140 degrees. And now he's facing the north towards Timpanogos and Salt Lake City again. Also, as we look, the glider here, we can see the tail fabric is curled under. That means the glider is going backwards and there's a bunch of brake pulled. Okay, so he's stalled the glider, and stalling one side was enough that it stalled the entirety. Okay, and now begins the fight of the Cascade. But before we go on to that, I just want to make sure it's abundantly clear that in this instance, which is something that if you're flying big cross-country conditions is not so rare, that you fly out of strong lift in such a way that it feels like the glider is collapsing when it's really not collapsing. It's actually your body going towards the glider. But at any rate, you have a dramatic drop in brake line pressure and riser pressure. It is correct to pull the brakes dramatically, but if the glider is not collapsed, then I would err on the side of caution and release the brakes earlier than later to avoid stalling the glider unnecessarily. Because as I showed you, as we step forward, we go into this moment where we have brake line pressure. That hand needs to be at the pulley right now, and it's not, and so it creates a stall, and so begins a very scary and wild ride. Okay, so let's just watch the wild ride here for a second. Before we play this, I want you to notice two things. Don't just watch his hands. Definitely don't just stare at the glider. We always do this. We just stare at the glider so many times. Watch his hands. I also want you to watch his weight shift. Okay? Hands and weight shift. Ready? Fast hands. Hands are moving. Hands are active. Heads on one side of the risers. Oh, heads on the other side of the risers. Oh, heads on the other side of the risers. Oh, glider's spinning. Glider's going the other way. Oh, shooting. Falling in a line twist. Okay. So in general, if you're trying to stall a paraglider, quiet weight, quiet hands is a mantra that will serve you enormously. That's like that you're not doing this with the brakes and that you're not like weight shifting either way. Quiet hands, let the glider stabilize. And then what we're looking for is an exit window. Okay. So what's obvious here is that he created these big pilot induced oscillations in stall, right? Because he's doing asymmetric things with his hands. So it makes asymmetric turns with the glider, and the glider can turn in stall, 90 or 180 degrees really quickly. It's really dramatic, So it gets him into all kinds of crazy configurations where his head is on one side of the risers. Like he's basically riser twisted here. So you want to avoid that. You avoid it with quiet hands and quiet weight and looking for the exit window. When I say the exit window, basically when you're stalled, just like when you're flying a paraglider, the pitch is relevant. We're always trying to manage the pitch. When you're stalled, you're managing the pitch as well, although you do different things with your hands. When you're flying and the glider pitches forward, you pull the brakes. When you're stalled and the glider pitches forward, we call this an exit window. And that means that we can start the sequence of raising our hands up so that the glider will fly again. Here, a couple of times in this stall configuration, he goes through exit windows, doesn't know it, and restalls the glider, right? Exit window right here. Missed it. Exit window. Exit window. Shoots forward again. Exit window. Oop, now he did it asymmetrically. When it's really asymmetric, that's not an exit window. You really want to control the heading of the glider first, and then you manage the pitch to let it out of the stall. You don't really want to let it shoot when it's hellying. So he misses a number of exit windows here. As far as I know, this pilot at this point had not done SIV, and it's really not advised that you would be flying big cross-country conditions without having done an SIV for exactly this reason. Stall point, these things aren't totally familiar to you, and then how to let out of a stall configuration safely, consistently every time is really important. So I think this incident was a wake-up call for this pilot to get the proper SIV training and practice that he needs. When I was learning my first stalls, I did 7 stalls over water with an instructor doing tows. Never really did an SIV, but did these 7 stalls one day, and then a week later I went to Iquique, Chile, and I did my next 150 stalls, my first 40 helicopters. I learned SATs, and honestly after 150 stalls I thought, oh wow, I've kind of got this figured out. And I had heard this number thrown around that like 300 stalls was kind of like the beginning of competency in stalls. And I think that it really is like between 300 and 500 stalls gives you a baseline competency in the maneuver. So, doing an SAV every year is a great idea, and hopefully you can work up to that. But paragliding is a very serious sport, and it is a risk that we take with our lives and with the well-being of our families and our children and our wives. And so it's something you really want to take super seriously and have badass mentorship that supports you in making very conservative decisions for yourself and really doing your due diligence before you have a wake-up call about that you're in way over your fucking head, So this is the reason that I make these videos, is trying to support men in living longer and having more fulfilling and safer paragliding careers. And at the Paragliding Men's Group, try to help men be the fathers and husbands and have fulfilling and safe relationships and lives where they really get to do what they want and are authentic and live their lives as an example of freedom and feeling safe in their own skin and getting the kind of love and relationship that they want. Like living as a demonstration that that's possible, of pure possibility. This kind of shit just totally rivets me, and I've created an incredible thing at the Paragliding Men's Group. If that's something that you're interested in, now's your chance. We got 10 men. We got 2 spots left. The launch is very soon. Last week to apply. Would love to talk to you about that. An application gets a one-on-one call with me. Links in the description. Hope this is useful. Fly safe, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode.